Ever experienced the awkwardness of dealing with customers who don't pay? You walk a fine line of diplomacy. Being too pushy can offend, risking not only the money that's due, but any future new business with that customer. So in this video, I'll share 7 tips for getting paid without creating hard feelings. Be sure to watch this right through to the end, because my last tip is going to give you the best chance of getting paid without having to either go to court or engage the services of a collection agency. Over the 30-odd years that companies have been bringing me in to provide customer service training tips for their teams, we often deal with the issue of difficult customers. And this time, I'm talking about customers who don't pay in a timely manner. The first of my 7 tips on how to deal with customers who don't pay is do your homework. Start by gathering information about the invoice itself, and more importantly, about how much overall business that customer does with you. Any large volume customer isn't going to be very happy about getting a collection call about a relatively small amount. They may rethink continuing to do business with you. On the other hand, a first-time customer with a large overdue account should be contacted sooner rather than later. When it comes to collecting, it makes sense to give long-term customers special consideration. So my second tip for how to deal with customers who don't pay, begin with a courtesy email. The first can be a friendly email soon after the payment is due. Keep the tone light and conversational. Something like, "Pat, I was going through receivables and noticed we haven't received a payment on you from this. Just wondering if there's anything you need from us or if there's anything I should be aware of. Thanks." My third tip on how to deal with customers who don't pay is share facts, not accusations. You may have found that certain phrases sound a little bit like accusations that put people on the defensive. So saying to somebody that they are late or overdue sounds like a generalization. Instead, give them specific dates and encourage them to talk. Something like, "Payment was due on the 17th and we haven't received it as of today. Is there something I should be aware of?" At that point, we're listening, taking notes, and gathering facts. This isn't the time to state your position. Instead, summarize your understanding of the facts that you've collected. Something like, "So if I understand this correctly, the situation at your end is," and then you summarize your understanding. A huge part of building trust with anyone is demonstrating that you get their circumstances. That brings us to our fourth tip on how to deal with customers who don't pay: empathize. After you've summarized your understanding of their situation, then if in fact they have been experiencing financial setbacks, empathize. Begin with 2 magic words: sounds like. Sounds like you've had a run of unfortunate events. Sorry to hear that. Those words make you sound more humane and compels people to want to cooperate with you. My 5th tip for dealing with customers who don't pay is what I call expressing your grand intention. If you are dealing with a normally reliable customer, then express to them that you want to help them through this and that you value their business. I call it expressing your grand intention. It sets a positive tone and implies that you're interested in achieving a mutually beneficial resolution that's going to work for both parties over the long term. Again, the goal is for them to feel motivated to pay. I hope you're finding this to be helpful. Speaking of which, before I get to my next tip, if you like this video, then I think you're going to love my tips. You'll find the 30-second tips for free at jeffsbusinesstips.com. That brings us to our next tip for how to deal with customers who don't pay, and that is summarize your understanding. Before hanging up, clarify your understanding with your customer. So in other words, okay, so for my notes and to make sure that we have everything clear moving forward, here's what we've agreed to. Then send them a written summary of what you discussed. That way, if you do end up in court, you'll have proper documentation. Now remember, I said that my last tip was going to give you the best chance of avoiding going to court or having to engage a collection agency? Well, here it is. My final tip on how to deal with customers who don't pay is all about last resorts. If you conclude that there's little hope of getting that customers to pay the full amount, or that you don't want to continue to do business with that customer, well, consider settling for a lower amount. In most cases, you're going to be farther ahead than you would financially if you were to take them to court, in which case you might get a judgment, but try to get paid from that, or if you engage the services of a collection agency, and more importantly, all the stress that's involved with that. So do consider settling for a less amount. Speaking of dealing with unpleasant customers, a couple of managers over the years have told me that their business practice is once a year they get together with their team members and talking about the 1 or 2 worst customers that they're going to get rid of. They just aren't worth the stress. And in that case, they send the customer a letter along the lines of, "It appears that you've not been satisfied with our service. We are therefore asking that in future you use the services of another firm." Hopefully it doesn't come to that often, but life is short, probably too short for dealing with those small percentage of customers who create such stress and headaches for you and your team members. Well, the bottom line is this. Well, dealing with difficult, non-paying customers can be daunting. Fortunately, by simply being a strong listener and choosing your words more thoughtfully, you can make collecting from customers less unpleasant and more rewarding. Well, I hope you found that to be helpful. And as I mentioned before, if you like this video, I think you're going to love my 30-second tips. You'll find them for free at jeffsbusinesstips.com. See you next time.